Aren't balls just great? Filling up space and moving around in circles. And I don't know about you, but the little Sims in Workers and Resources know very well that the ball they put their feet on as they get out of bed in the morning is largely made of iron. The same iron that gives them tractors, men of steel, and electronic computation machines to play Tetris on. So, how about we find some of our own? Last time in the Soviet Republic of Arab Map, we found out all we needed to know about making ridiculously long conveyor lines and making them work in an export environment. And do you know what else you can connect conveyors to? The steel mill. How's that for a splendid segue? Seriously though, for a starting republic, the steel mill always looms on the horizon as this highly desirable but daunting structure. You need steel everywhere from day one, but it feels like you shouldn't even consider building the mill until you've all grown up and ready. A quick look at the costs, though, tells us that while expensive-ish, the steel mill itself is a middling building sitting in the company of the likes of the coal power plant, and it's certifiably tiny compared to the monsters of the caliber of the aluminium or large chemical factories. So maybe it's not that scary after all. Now, don't take this question as me implying that setting up your own steel production is suddenly easy, so please do be very afraid and remain indoors. But let's imagine your republic has grown far and wide enough to be able to actually extract and process all of the iron and coal it needs to make steel. So much so that there is no need for imports and you can just build the full Monty. With perfect quality mines, you can make a whole ton of steel out of just about 20 man-days and a tiny little bit of electricity. Knowing how much damage buying this devil's metal causes to your budget every time you want to build anything, this sounds like nothing short of a miracle. So I did the profitability calculations for domestic steel, and I indeed expected it to soar through the roof. And it actually is extremely good at 91%, although the oil refinery still takes the cake. And eats it. At full capacity, the entire steel combine cranks out a profit of 34 grand a day in 1985 for almost 12.5 million annually. This puts the steel mill squarely in line with all of the other major industrial projects we previously discussed, like nuclear fuel, aluminium, or oil. It's almost like this world was created by a mysterious group of people intending to make each of these an interesting choice. There is also something else we've seen before. The facilities that make steel and its precursors shower you with a bunch of production and consumption numbers that aren't exactly making it easier to plan the combine. So we once again bring everything to a common denominator and ask ourselves how much the iron and coal mines and their respective processing plants would have to work in order for a full capacity steel mill to operate for one day. The answer is more straightforward than you'd expect, even with a combine consisting of two branches. In the iron-producing branch, we can see that for every steel mill, we need almost 2 iron processors and just 1 perfect iron mine operating at less than half capacity. This means that if you are lucky to find a mine of at least 86% quality, that mine alone would be enough for 2 very hungry mills. The harsh reality is that you're often not going to find mines that good. Arab Map and East Germany, for example, never go above 65, while Estonia caps at 72. In any case, 43% is the minimum requirement to feed a single steel mill, and in actual field conditions, I'd aim for something like 50% to offset any possible fluctuations in labor. So, what about the coal then? If there is such a thing as an insatiable coal vampire, the steel mill is that. The way it gobbles up coal is also incredibly annoying, as it needs the output of just a little more than 3 coal processing plants. But if we give it a realistic look, 3 is enough for bringing the steel mill to 96% production capacity. And if I could work at 96% capacity, I'd probably be a spaceman or a lion tamer, and in any case too busy entertaining the ladies to plan steel factories. So let's just leave it at 3. You can always add a 4th one if you feel rich, or if you are building another steel mill nearby and you want to streamline your processing. Meanwhile, the coal mine causes a lot less trouble, as the steel mill only needs just over 2/3 of its maximum production to work properly. though I would once again err on the side of caution and look for something at least 80%. The mine takes hundreds of workers after all, and you may have trouble keeping it full all the time. It is also better to build better quality mines even if you don't plan to use them at full capacity, because they get you more product per man-day of labor. This leads us to the obvious question of what your steel profits would look like if your mines were terrible and you were stuck with the lowest quality 43% iron mine and 71% coal. This actually increases the man-hours needed to make a ton of steel by about a quarter, and reduces the profitability of your steel combine to 88%. So still massive and very worthwhile. So now that we have the full list of buildings to construct, how much the whole thing actually cost? 1.8 million. That's right, the steel mill takes up only 20% of the total amount. The mines are kinda cheap, while the processing plants may not take a lot of workers, but by God are they expensive. The overall price of the steel combine's buildings does give us a little perspective in comparison with the other industries. It is pricier than the most basic nuclear fuel combo, it is comparable to a nice pair of big chemical plants, and is far below the massive endeavor that is the manufacture of aluminium. This means that yes, steel can give you massive returns for reasonable investment, and is probably not something you ought to postpone. Now suppose you want to cash in the returns and export every last bit of all that fat steel the mill churns out. Could there be a good and easy way to add even more value to it? The obvious answer is something like shipbuilding, of course, but that's a rabbit hole so massive it comfortably eclipses the Windsor Whittle steel mill. And we only want a quick addition that turns us a bigger buck. This brings us to the mechanical components factory, which in addition to being one of the most stylish buildings in the game, very conveniently consumes almost exactly half the entirety of the daily output of the steel mill. So imagine we add 2 of those and turn 43 tons of steel into just over 29 tons of mechanical components. Counting the relatively big labor costs in these factories, they still raise the absolute daily profits of the whole compound from 34 grand to just over 43. That's a chunky 27% boost for something that costs less than 400 grand to build, paying off in 43 days. They do reduce the overall profitability of the whole complex a tiny bit, but with domestically produced steel, these mech factories still operate at profit rates that are way up there with the best of the best, and there's simply no reason to reject the massive added value they provide. Mechanical components are a little harder to move because they take lower capacity boxcars and covered hull trucks as opposed to open platforms, but when you're talking quantities on the level of 30 to 40 tons, it's pretty much a matter of adding another wagon or truck to your logistics. So there, if you're building the steel complex aiming for exports, make sure you mill, lathe, and drill all that steel into mechanical components before sale. In the more likely case of setting up steel production for domestic consumption and replacing your imports, my approach would be to still attach one mech factory to the steel mill, not forgetting obviously to place a storage facility between them for any future expansion and easier logistics. You need both steel and mechs in so many things across your republic, and you can use the number of workers in that mech factory as a control valve to adjust your mech production based on your current consumption, and occasionally selling off any surplus mechs. Alrighty then, but what if we decide to tell all these filthy mines to privatize themselves and just import the iron and coal from abroad? Could that actually work out in a useful way? And anyway, can we quantify how good steel is for our republic's economy? Well, we've held an extraordinary meeting of the Council of Ministers, and the overwhelming opinion is that